everybody. I wanted to make this video to follow up on my last video to make some things a little bit more clear on what's going on based on some of the comments and actually some of the emails I've gotten basically attacking me. There are realities to narcissism and alienation that we all deal with that need to be faced. And the first thing I want to say is nothing would make me happier than to be able to throw my father in jail for forging my name on mortgage modification documents. Unfortunately, as we've all found, as we've dealt with the court systems or just dealt with these people in general, what's right doesn't happen. And you are stuck with the situation you're in. I understand a lot of you, and the reason I do this is, well, the reason I do this channel is, for myself, to get my story out there. And like I said, I never expected it to grow the way it has, but it has. And I realize a lot of you take comfort and find answers in my story and in this channel, and you follow along very emotionally, and you see what's happening to me, and you want justice. And I've said that in many of my videos. Why, how the narcissist never really gets what's coming to them until they die, and there's never any justice in the court system. And what we have to realize is we understand narcissism, we understand alienation, and we understand personality disorders because we're living it and we're talking about it. But the majority of the world doesn't. And the ones that do see narcissism in themselves and they fight it wholeheartedly. And that happens in the therapy community, as I've stated, and obviously in both divorce and family court system. It's just the reality we're in. And when we take my situation here, the reality is I haven't seen my daughter, touched my daughter, since November of 2011. So I've gone a good 3 years without seeing or touching my daughter, regardless of who's to blame for that. That's what the court looks at. Furthermore, they look at the situation as a whole, and when you're the guy, you are behind the 8 ball to begin with. Now, you would think, having signed mortgage documentation that's been forged in your name, and having the phone calls that I have, the recorded phone calls of absolute incontrovertible proof of alienation, abuse, and narcissism, that this would be a slam dunk. And all things being equal and all things being fair, it would be. But that's not our reality. The reality is, as insane as my mother is and this situation is, I have her twice dead to rights with phone call from narcissistic mother, where it's obviously abusive, drunken phone call, and now the phone call with basically confirming everything that's been going on, which you've all heard for yourselves. That's public knowledge. People and her friends and her job know about it. And keep in mind, my mother's a public employee. She runs a building department. That second phone call gaslighting mother, lying on phone. She was in her office, which is a public office of the building department in the town she works in, yelling and screaming like that. My mother's behavior is well known by people, which I have stated numerous occasions. And yet she gets to be a public employee because people want to look the other way, because it's easier to look the other way than to deal with it. Same thing happens in the court system. Now, my ex-wife is another public employee. She's a school teacher, and I'm not denigrating her anymore because I agreed not to do that. But she works in an urban school. She has contact with DIFUS every day, friendship type relationships with the Division of Youth and Family Services in New Jersey. That matters. We all know it matters. We all have been or know of other people that have been screwed over by personal relationships because the narcissist or whoever has a personal relationship with people inside. And we know the court systems don't want to hear about narcissism. They don't want to hear about abuse. They want to look the other way, especially when it's the male making the accusation. Now, the reality is, in order for me, and I really wanted full custody, like at that time, at that moment, I'm like, I got this. But once you delved into this and you start talking to your lawyer and you start dealing with what's the reality of the situation, it would have been a lot more than just the retainer fee, because now you're getting into psych evals and home evaluations and repeated visits. The state doesn't pay for that. You pay for that, meaning, and you're looking at a lot more than that retainer fee to do that. And then at the end of the day, the court doesn't look at it anyway. And many of my followers, or not many, few of my followers work in law and paralegals, and the one I go to is Angela Watts, who has many stories of clients for her boss's law firm where narcissism is proven by the state's own psychologist. That was paid for by her clients, and nobody cared. Nobody listened to it, which was my whole fear, is my whole fear with the family court system, because you're gonna shell out the money either way and still 95% of the time lose. And on the very rare occasion, where a judge recognizes parental alienation, take the judge in Detroit, where the 3 children were being alienated from the father. And the order was in place, and the children were refusing to have any contact with the father. And the judge took custody from the mother and said, well, if you're not going to go with your father, you're going to go into state care. And that judge was demonized. Not demonized by people going through it, because you got to understand, even though the YouTube community or Facebook community for dealing with this is huge, we're a grain of sand in the reality of what's going on in the real world. And the reality, because if any of this was easy, you wouldn't be watching my videos. If this stuff was so easily solved, there wouldn't be a narcissism community on YouTube, and there wouldn't be a narcissism community on Facebook, and there wouldn't be parental alienation communities on Twitter and on all these social media sites. And these are all still young, and because most people don't know it or understand it. And the legal system doesn't want to know about it, because we all know that's about money. They don't want to lose their money. We know the therapy community doesn't want to know about it. and we get doors slammed in our face time after time after time after time, to the point, you're afraid to fight. You're a victim. You feel like you're constantly victimized, and you want to just shut yourself away from the world and hope it gets better sometime. But the reality of my situation is I haven't touched my daughter in 3 years. And I had a therapist dead to rights. I have ethics complaints against them that are going nowhere. I mean, it's plain as day. As the non-custodial parent, I have no restrictions on me whatsoever. No pattern of abuse, nothing. Nothing. For this therapist to have recruited my daughter off we know the story, recruited her off the diamond. He lives 200 yards down the road, and then he's trying to charge me $150 for information I'm legally entitled to have. You put in ethics violations, you fill out the paperwork, it's all these long forms, you mail it up there, nothing. You can't even get anybody on the phone. Nothing, nowhere. Not even an acknowledgement that they receive it. I talked to one person, and they told me that they receive it, but you would figure they would mail something back to you, like this is the status. Nothing. Nothing. And what makes my situation harder, and I'm not saying it's harder than anybody else's who deals with this, but when I put myself out here on this channel, you open yourself up for people who aren't mentally stable, as was the situation with this individual who was talking, where I wasn't sure if I could carry on this channel for the sole purpose of my daughter. And I can't control that, because that guy has his own channel where he's talking about all these crazy things about lighters and codes and crazy, crazy stuff that, my family watches every one of these videos. I know that. I knew that for a while. And their friends watch them, okay? And they read your comments. So when they read your comments more detailed than I do, so they know what's going on sometimes on this channel and with you guys more than I do. And my attorney said to me, he's like, whether or not we were going to do this try to work this out with the modification and the house. It's like, if we go in there, I mean, we can file, you can go in there, we could go for it. But they're going to pull out this guy. They could pull out this guy who's making these crazy claims about you, and now it's been confirmed. He got himself from Illinois and lived in a storage facility and was like basically watching what was going on with me. They're not going to let my daughter come into that type of, and they're right. They're right. I'm not even comfortable with it. That was the risk I took when I started this, and the subjects I deal with. I mean, even if I move back to New Jersey, hypothetically, if this guy drove from Illinois to South Florida, I mean, he's not going to have any problem going to New Jersey to try to track me down. And that's what, it's like this channel can almost, as therapeutic as it was, and as much as it helps everybody, it opens me up for a lot of areas of weakness. And there's been some comments about the mortgage company would prosecute this themselves. No, they won't. They won't. The mortgage company doesn't want to take that house. They want the money because the housing market's completely crashed. That house was purchased for $240,000 in 2001. It's 2015. The house is only assessed at $219,000. It's lost value in 15 years. And that doesn't include the refis and the second mortgage and everything else. If they wanted to prosecute, if they wanted to take that house, they would have taken it 5 years. They wouldn't have waited 5 years of no mortgage payments to do it. They'd have done it immediately. Because it's the mortgage company that was calling me, asking me to please reconsider on this loan modification. I'm like, well, you were the ones defrauded too here. We just want our money. We just want to work this out. It's a good deal. And it was a good deal, but that was besides the point. I had to be able to put aside my hatred for my father and mother and the hatred of the situation that was going on. Because believe it or not, I don't hate my ex-wife. I don't. There were times I felt I did, and you get these hateful feelings, but I don't hate her. I was with her for 14 years. I don't hate her, and I never wanted to hate her. I never wanted any of this. And in many ways, she's a victim too. She's a victim of my family, and I think a part of her realizes that. She realizes that now. And the problem is loan modifications don't get notarized. So it's kind of like this sketchy, well, yeah, it is forgery, but there's no notary seal on it. The prosecutors don't necessarily want to go. They want to go after slam dunk cases. This is something that's some kind of gray area where it's a loan modification, which in reality benefits me. Okay, because she never did take my name off the mortgage, and it never happened. So the terms of the modification were never a problem with me once I read it because it was a good deal. It really is a fair modification, and it is a very, very good deal. The point was, the alienation, the forgery, and we all want justice so bad. We all want these abusers to pay so bad. But if it was that easy to make happen, we wouldn't be here right now. We wouldn't be abused. We wouldn't be in the situations we're in. Because they don't want to hear about it. They don't. And I understand everybody's fear, well, you could still get screwed over. Of course I could still get screwed over. I know that. I know that. But the reality is, I can't have my kid hate me. I can't. And this last month, we've been talking a couple times a week and laughing and knowing about her life again and cheering and everything she's doing. And I told her last night, sweetie, this is all I ever wanted. This is all I want. I just want to talk to you. I just want to know my kid. Because I got nobody left. I have my wife and we're alone. She don't have her family, I don't have mine. And my daughter is, if I were to die tomorrow, and I'm not saying I'm going to die tomorrow or I'm suicidal or anything, but if I were to die tomorrow, Erin is the only proof left that I ever even existed. And I can't have her hate her dad. And she's 12 years old now. The judge is going to ask her where she wants to be, what she wants to do, where she wants to live. And they're not going to want to hear about brainwashing because they never want to hear about brainwashing. And on the rare occasions where they do hear about it, the judge is vilified. Vilified. So, like, I owed you all another explanation, I guess, from the comments. Some of them were a little disturbing, to be quite honest with you. You know, people are like, oh, you're out for money and you're out for. I'm like, if I was out for money or notoriety with this channel, I'd have a lot more than, I think this might be 89 or 90 videos. I'd be making multiple videos a day. And I say I'm going to make them. This, to me, making these videos and talking about this is so. It is like when I was doing my intense therapy up in New Jersey, where, you know, I get it out. I talk to Maureen, that was her name. And then I go into a funk for 2 or 3 days because it's just so emotionally draining, and it drags up all these dark feelings and these feelings of hurt and regret and what if. And is it in your head? It's not in your head, even though you know it's not in your head. You know it's not in your head, but even though that voice in your head says, yeah, yeah, yeah. If it was anyone else, it wouldn't be in their head. But for you, it's in your head because you're you. I mean, it's that level of self-sabotage. And the reality is, the chances of the court, after 3 years of not even being able to talk to my parents, of being able to sort all this out, okay, and to take custody away from her mother and have her move 1,500 miles to another state, to South Florida, when there's a damn stalker who lived in a goddamn storage facility up the road. That's not safe. I mean, that's the reality here. That's the reality. I stated multiple times that, you know, there was never a parenting plan in place other than the one that was in New Jersey. Okay, and I left New Jersey for the reasons that has been stated numerous times. That was when things were really, really bad with me and my ex. And they made clear any attempt at a parenting plan for Florida was they're just gonna violate it, and then you're gonna have to file the contempt and go back to court, and boom, boom. Could that still happen? Of course it could. Of course it could. She could also, okay, but I mean, they could also just pick up and move to another state, and move to South Carolina or move to somewhere else at any given time before anything's filed or during the process, and nothing's going to happen. Okay, because there are no absolutes, and especially when dealing with family court and divorce court and narcissism and bad therapists and, you know, the litany of issues that we've all dealt with, not just me, all of us who have been through it. And I understand a lot of you want to see my father get his ass thrown in prison. Nothing would make me happier than to watch that motherfucker go on a perp walk. Nothing. Nothing. But the reality is, my mother's a public employee, and her bosses, I know, have seen gaslighting mother lying on phone, which was made in the damn building department office. And they already knew about phone call from narcissistic mother, the drunken phone call of abuse. And she's the face of their building department. And they do nothing. Because we know public employees all protect each other. We've all seen it. That's the reality I'm in. And I have a hard time asking for help. I do. So maybe I'm overly sensitive to some of the internet comments, but I take everything kind of personally, as you know. And I know I shouldn't. And if I've snapped on a couple of you in the comments, I'm sorry, but this is very, very, you know, this is just very stressful, and it's a very hard thing for me to do when I never ask for help. You know, I did a I tried to Kickstarter once to do something, but I was half serious about it. I put a ridiculous amount on it, knowing I would never reach it, almost to self-sabotage myself again. But, this is different. And I am talking to Erin, and I can communicate with my ex-wife now. And we are talking to each other like people, and we did talk about things about the marriage and about where things went wrong and mistakes we both made. And because I don't want to hate the woman. I don't. I made an awesome child with her. You know, I'm not going to sit here and say everything was horrible about the marriage or about whatever happened, because it wasn't. And I understand her pain too, because I was like her rock, and I was her support for her, the bullshit she was dealing with her family and my family. And I do have a lot of guilt over how what happened and things went down, and I do. It's it's just very, very weighing. And ultimately, this is the best solution for me right now for the use of that money, is to get a parenting plan, a legitimate parenting plan, one that my ex is going to be able to deal with. Okay, one that Erin wants. Now it seems like she really wants to see me again. We had a couple good laughs, and she's asking questions about, hey, Daddy, you remember this? Do you remember when we did that? Do you remember? And then I tell her stories about when she was a baby, and it's the most I felt like her dad in 3 years. So, and believe me, you guys are a big part of it. These channels, these comments, and everybody who's already helped out on the GoFundMe. Believe me, that is a big, big deal to them, to the abusers, my father, my mother. I'm not even going to include my ex, okay, because we've come to an understanding. When they see that there's 80-something people donating money, in order for me to be able to have some kind of relationship, any kind of relationship with my daughter, and trying to fight for me, that scares them. Because the one thing I know, and even my attorney said, keep doing what you're doing on your channel. Don't make threats, because that channel is power, regardless of whether or not they're going to fire my mother. They're not going to fire my mother. She's a public employee. But it is a protection for me. And all of you have been a protection for me, because there's that many people coming at it. When they see thousands of comments and hundreds of comments and people and over 5,000 subscribers, subscribing to my channel, that's what the narcissist cares about. How many? And it's almost like I think when I know it is with my father, it's a jealousy thing. He would love to be able to go on and make a video and have 5,500 people care enough about what he's saying to subscribe and watch and comment and donate. It's a jealousy thing as well. So that's why that's why when I make a video that says it might be the end of at the time, I mean it. I do. And I could easily pull that video down or pull my last video down, but I'm not going to do that, because my life and my story needs to be an open book for everybody to see. Look, I'm not an expert. Like, I know about narcissism. I know about personality disorders because I'm living it. But I know more about it because I've been talking to you and doing this channel. And I learn more, and it's not everybody, and it's only really a few, but what people need to realize is I'm just a regular person. I'm just somebody trying to fix his relationship with his children, with his child, and get his life back on track, and get my head in my life and get everything going the way it needs to go. So anybody who thinks I'm was making this up for some reason, doing it for notoriety, I don't, there's not much I could say to you. I mean, if that wants to be your opinion, that's going to be your opinion. Okay. Um, and, you know, people think I'm out for money. It's just, if I was out for money, I never would have left New Jersey. I never would have left New Jersey if I was out for money, because my family has money, which is the other part of the equation you got to fight. Not only do I need my retainer fee, I got to be able to fight off their money and their lawyers, because they got an endless supply of it. Anybody, again, who's dealt with the court system knows who has the most money wins. That's the reality. I don't want this to be a money battle. I just want to see when I just wanted to see my kid. So I hope this clears a little bit, because I went on a lot longer than I thought I would. And I hope this clears a little bit up for anybody who doesn't understand why I backed off the prosecution, because I don't have a choice. I don't have a choice. And even if I were to win, I mean, even if I were to win, that still doesn't repair the relationship with my daughter. You know, I've seen people who have actually won on the rare occasion where the children had to be forcibly removed from the one parent given to the other. And you know what happens? The children then resent the parent that took them away, because they took them away from their mom. They took them away from their dad by force. And you got to spend breaking down. Okay, Erin's talking to me. She wants to talk to me. This isn't like where she's completely destroyed, where like she just doesn't want anything to do with me. She never wanted anything to do with me. That's not the situation here. But I could have very well been facing that if I tried to rip her out of her house and rip her out of her home for 12 years and take her home away and throw her mother in jail and throw her grandfather in jail, who unfortunately she loves. She does love my grandfather. She does love my father. God help him if he ever does to her what he did to me. God help him, and I made that 100% clear. The best way to handle this is to set up a legitimate parenting plan through the court. That's what it is. I would love to be able to throw my family in jail and not even take full cut. I mean, I'd love to have Erin here full time. Who wouldn't? Everybody wants their daughter. Everybody wants their children full time. But we got a divorce. The marriage didn't work out. Do I want to did I ever really want to deprive my ex-wife of? No. Because I know how shitty that feels. I know my ex-wife loves Erin. You know, some people say, oh, you know, alienators don't. Sometimes they do. Well, I know my ex-wife loves my daughter. I know she does. And, you know, I'm not bashing my ex-wife. And I promised I wasn't going to do that. And I'm not doing that. Ultimately, I have to do what's best for Erin's well-being. And if that means sacrificing my own feelings for a while, then so be it. But this was going to be an uphill battle to begin. You know, you would think with everything, but no, with all the evidence you had, and a lot of us have a ton of evidence, and where does it go? Nowhere. Nowhere. Okay, I've gone on way too long on this. Thank you to everybody who, excuse me. Thank you to everybody who's helped out. I'm still going to leave the link in the description box. If you want to share it, please do. Um, you all know how GoFundMe works. I mean, I'm just out of sorts with the whole thing. You know, I'm just out of sorts. So I will continue with this channel. Obviously, I'm going to try to get some sleep because it's going on now 8 a.m. I've been up pacing most of the night. You know, really haven't slept much. So I'm going to try to get some sleep, wake up feeling better, and probably do a couple more videos. At least that's my intention. We'll see how I feel when I wake up. Till next time, this is Ollie Matthews. Thank you, everybody, for your support and your help. Take care. Bye.